if Jake Paul wasn't Jake Paul, if he wasn't this YouTube guy, he was just a boxer, and you see a boxer knock out the former UFC welterweight champion, not just the former, but one of the best ever. I don't think that power carries quite as much with those bigger guys. It's a little bit of a step. It's a step up, you know, like that. There's very few guys that keep that power as they keep going up and up and up in weight.
A lot of people think it's funny, like, oh, you're gonna fight Canelo, like you're saying you're gonna beat Canelo, like you're out of your mind, you lost to Tommy Fury in a split decision, how are you gonna beat?
Jake Paul is expected to face Canelo Alvarez in May 2025, but Joe Rogan is skeptical about the bout happening. Rogan believes that Canelo has a packed schedule and doesn't have time to wait around for Paul. He pointed out that Canelo is a big money fight, and that's why everyone wants to challenge him. Despite the hype, Rogan doubts the fight will actually materialize.
Very fucking dangerous. Very dangerous.
And there's always somebody coming, right behind you. And these guys who've been at the top so long, you're like, all right, let me get somebody that's on my level. Canelo, he's been in the game just as long as me. And all right, let's just do this for this paycheck and then move on.
I think when they get to a certain level and they realize they only have a few fights left, they want the big money fights. And Canelo is obviously the biggest money fight. Even though Boots Ennis is a great fighter, most people don't know who he is yet.
Yeah.
And with Canelo, everybody knows who Canelo is. If you get the Canelo fight, that's red pants.
Joe Rogan argues that many people dislike Jake Paul simply because he started as a YouTuber. According to Rogan, Paul has already proven himself as a legitimate boxer by defeating multiple UFC champions, and his dedication shows that he's no joke in the ring.
Jake Paul wasn't Jake Paul if he wasn't this YouTube guy. He was just a boxer. And you see a boxer knock out the former UFC welterweight champion, not just the former, but one of the best ever. Knock him out with one punch like that. You're like, oh man, have you seen this Jake Paul dude coming up? He's fucking for real. Because nothing about watching him fight, to me, screams like he's in over his head. Nothing. He looks like a real boxer.
Rogan acknowledges Jake Paul's efforts and dedication, saying he's a great boxer despite the backlash he faces from critics.
Think you could still throw down, like if it had to happen, like if Jake Paul called you out?
Well, he'd probably fuck me up.
Really?
He's a really good boxer. He's a good boxer.
What if it was kickboxing? He doesn't really know how to kickbox.
When I was a younger man and I had good knees, I could be kickboxing people, but I could barely get through a workout without being in pain now. There's a reality of knees and back.
A discussion. Both Joe Rogan and Post Malone agreed that Canelo Alvarez is an absolute beast in the ring. Canelo's dominance, skill, and power make him one of the greatest boxers of this generation. They highlighted his incredible career and how he continues to take on the toughest challenges in boxing.
He's a beast.
He's a beast.
He's a beast.
Like I'm talking more about Jake. I want to see a UFC fight.
You want to see a UFC fight with Jake?
Yeah.
Well, he's not going to fight for the UFC.
Well, no,
he's
or
got a
MMA
contract
fight.
for-
MMA
yeah,
fight.
He'll
I'm
do
so
an
sorry.
MMA. He's got a contract with the PFL, which is another organization. They're throwing a lot of money around. They just signed Francis Ngannou, and Jake has a contract with them. So if he has an MMA fight, I think it has to be over there.
Many boxing professionals remain skeptical about the Jake Paul versus Canelo fight actually happening. The primary reason for this is that Canelo is preparing for his fight against Terence Crawford in September, and most experts believe he won't entertain the idea of fighting Paul while he's focused on another elite opponent.
Said that you'd like to go up against Canelo Alvarez. What gives you the right to call out a 59-2 boxer, one of the greatest of all time, when you've not yet proven yourself?
I'm predicting what's going to happen three more years from now.
So I'm
going to get to his skill level and beat him. I have one of the greatest self-belief systems in the world, and I know what I'm capable of. And with this new team, I can give Canelo a serious run for his money.
Would you ever do like exhibitions like that, or like people like Jake Paul call you out, or these like other big stars? Like, is that business-wise like even worth it?
When I'm done with boxing, why not? Maybe I do it. I think it's
like when you're done like competing at the highest level, you're saying?
Yeah, I think it's good because what happened there is other people who never watch boxing, or they don't know anything about boxing, they want to watch Jake Paul because he's coming from he bring fans from other world, right? Yeah. That's good because everybody enjoy it.
Would you ever entertain that idea when you're done?
Maybe.
Max, a boxing analyst, believes that Jake Paul might want the fight, but Canelo won't take him seriously. Canelo reportedly sees Paul's challenges as more entertainment than real competition. and doesn't consider Paul a worthy opponent.
Max?
Yeah.
Will we actually see this fight?
It's not impossible. He has 0% chance to beat Canelo Alvarez. This is the worst guy he could fight is Canelo Alvarez. The worst thing he can do.
No. Tell us why.
Because,
I want your
because Canelo Alvarez is not playing games.
Thank you.
That's what I'm saying. Everything is muscle memory since he was a kid. He was a natural. He's fought every fighter there is. He's beaten light heavyweights, and he's a natural counterpuncher. You come to him, he just beats the hell out of you. There's no way in any universe Jake Paul could ever beat Canelo Alvarez. But I love the fact that he thinks he can. I love that about both Paul brothers. This is how it could happen, okay? How a fight could happen. He has to beat Tyron Woodley. That's not easy. Then he has to beat a striker in their prime, because Woodley's not in his prime anymore, right? Still an MMA guy, not a full-time boxer in his prime. Then he'd be 5-0. Then he needs to beat a striker who's his size and in his prime, but from MMA, so he still hasn't fought a boxer. He's 6-0. Then he needs to fight a pro boxer. Could be an inexperienced guy, but he's got to fight him. That's 7-0. Beat a more experienced pro boxer, 8-0. Beat a pro boxer his own size, 9-0. Beat a more experienced pro boxer his own size. He'd be 10-0, and now he's ready for an 8-round fight against a real fighter, right? Then you got to beat that guy. It takes a while to build up a world-class 10-round fighter, and he'll always be at a disadvantage against guys with amateur backgrounds because they have muscle memory. We saw it in UFC 264, Stephen A. Remember the Hardy fight? Mm-hmm. So he's fighting a guy with muscle memory. Hardy's an athlete.
Jake Paul has always set big goals for himself. He believes that aiming for such big challenges pushes him to grow as a fighter. According to Paul, fighting Canelo is a way to put pressure on himself and prove to everyone that he can reach the top, no matter how many people doubt him.
And then for your girlfriend, Yuta, to win Olympic gold.
Yeah, we just have all the belts.
That's insane.
In the world.
That's crazy.
And then we should just retire after that.
So look, are you happy with your performance in the fight? Are you happy with the way the night went down?
I wish he would have, put up a better fight, so then I could have risen more and done more. And he was surviving.
He was.
So
Before you went out,
it's worked up. But I think that everybody just wants him to win, wanted Mike to win. But
dude, people really don't like us, Jake. People really want to see you get knocked out.
Yeah, what did I ever do to anyone?
Well, you climbed on top of the KTLA news van.
Hilarious.
You wasted the government's money.
How?
Because the FBI had to raid your house.
They wasted their own money. They wasted their own money. Why would they do that? I didn't. And then nothing ever came from it. They didn't even know what they were doing.
Although Jake Paul tweeted about the potential fight, many people still question its reality. Some call it impossible, while others dismiss it as just a rumor. However, boxing insider Adol Lido believes that Canelo might actually accept the fight, seeing it as a lucrative payday that could tempt him to step into the ring with Jake Paul.
All right, let's do this. Canelo versus Crawford, confirmed. Not a rumor, not speculation, not he said, she said, or someone leaking the story. Confirmed. And I guess the confirmation doesn't get much more rock solid than the Ring Magazine putting this story out first. Ring Magazine, obviously owned by Turkey. Turkey would have been the one to put this deal together, and Turkey would have had to give the green light for the Ring Magazine to even put that story out. That's as confirmation as you need it. That's it. The fight will happen in September. Touch wood, no injuries. Wow. Easily the biggest fight of 2025. I said a few days ago, Benavidez Morale was my most intriguing fight of 2025. Obviously, that's now been put down to second place because this has been announced. Nothing can be announced to top
the potential fight between Jake Paul and Canelo Alvarez could also have massive broadcasting implications. If the fight airs on Netflix, it could break streaming records and bring boxing to an even wider audience, leveraging Netflix's global
Canelo Alvarez versus Jake Paul in May. That's what ESPN Boxea, ESPN in Spanish is reporting. ESPN in Spanish does 1,000,000 times better than ESPN in English when it comes to boxing. It's just factual. So I really trust their relationship in the boxing world versus the American counterpart, that it's always hit or miss. Sometimes they're right, sometimes they're not. Sometimes they take sources, they don't source where they got it from. But ESPN in Spanish is saying it's very serious talks, between Canelo Alvarez and Jake Paul to fight in the USA in May. And it's going to be a joint promotion from Canelo Promotions, from MVP Promotions, and from PBC. I've heard about this fight about 5 months ago, that there was talks about it happening. I couldn't really run with it because it didn't look like that was the direction, but anything is possible. And Jake Paul did tease that he has a big announcement in January. So this may be the big announcement he was working on. But what do you guys think? Canelo and Jake Paul. Jake Paul's been in boxing 5 years. Canelo Alvarez has been in boxing since he was a kid. Been a professional since he's 15. He's fought the likes of Mayweather, Cotto, Danny Jacobs. So many off the top of my head. Pero Angulo. He fought Munguia, Berlanga, and Austin Trout. And so many legends on his resume. Shane Mosley and James Kirkland. And Canelo works very hard to be at the position that he's in. A 4-division champion and undisputed at 68. And him and Jake Paul, marketing-wise, would be a massive, massive fan. Everyone knows Canelo is a rock star. Everyone knows Jake Paul is very popular. It's hard to top Jake Paul, Mike Tyson, but if there's one fight that could top it, this may be it. So it's going to be interesting. And Jake Paul, he shared the ring with Mike Tyson. And a lot of people want to see revenge. Even Canelo said that he would fight him in revenge for Mike Tyson. So this may be on Netflix again. And if it is, that was a movie. They really invested.
David Benavidez has also shared his thoughts on the situation. He believes Canelo should face him instead of Jake Paul before retiring. Benavidez argues that he and Canelo are among the greatest in the sport, while Paul is seen as someone bringing entertainment to boxing, rather than being a legitimate competitor.
He will have fought David Benavidez.
True. I think it will happen. Like I said, I just got to keep doing what I'm doing. I think now what I've showed is that, I'm a big enough name. David Morrell wasn't really that known, but we still sold out of 20,000, 20,000 people in the T-Mobile Arena. I'm sure the pay-per-views are pretty good. So I think I'm making my case, and this, I still have a lot of room to grow. So by the time Canelo, I don't know when Canelo's going to retire, but, by the time maybe in a couple years, this fight will probably be even bigger than it was when they first, when people were first talking about it. So I'll have more titles. Canelo probably have more titles, and it'll just make it for a bigger fight. Kind of like, Mayweather Pacquiao.
Yeah. In the last couple of years, did it ever get close enough to the point where you actually thought it was going to happen? Did it ever get to the goal line, so to speak?
I mean, I don't know about the paperwork that side, but I felt like it was really close happening because I did everything I was supposed to do to get the fight, and like I said, the people want the fight. So these whole past 2 years, I thought it was going to happen.
All the criticism, it's undeniable that Jake Paul has changed the boxing landscape. His ability to market fights and attract millions of viewers has reshaped how boxing events are promoted and has introduced the sport to a whole new audience. People who may not have cared about boxing before.
Jake Paul, I mean, as of right now, for what he's doing, it's good for what he's doing. But once he fights a real fighter, it's going to be bad.
Have you been impressed?
But one thing I like about him, one thing I do like about him, he's selling it. He's selling it, and he's making good money, and he's entertaining. I like it.
Is he? And Floyd, there are many people who believe you're the most talented fighter ever. Period. So whatever you say to this question, I think is important. Are you impressed? Does he have boxing ability, or is he just an entertainer who has a lot of fans and can promote a fight and has fought lesser opponents, or is he actually talented?
As long as he continues to fight MMA guys and YouTubers, he's gonna continue to look good and shine. But once he fights a real fighter, a real fighter that can really fight, it's not gonna be that good.
Does he have the ability, with what you've seen, to continue to mold himself into somebody who can actually? He told me before his goal is to fight Canelo, so that's where his mindset's at.
It get fucked up by Canelo. Oh, I'm sorry, it's TMT.
You can curse. You can curse. You can curse.
I apologize, but
no apologize about
it. There's no way he get demolished. But for what he's doing, as long as they keep getting YouTubers and keep putting them in there with MMA guys.
After his highly publicized fight with Mike Tyson, Jake Paul has repeatedly called out Canelo Alvarez. He's made it clear that Canelo has been on his radar for years, and despite the doubts and mockery from boxing fans, Paul remains persistent in pursuing this fight. Interview when Jake Paul fought Mike Tyson. Many laughed at the idea of the match. However, the event brought attention to women's boxing, with the women's fight on the same card receiving significant viewership. People tuned in for Jake versus Tyson, which helped make the entire event more successful and engaging for fans.
Does the spectacle go from here? What's the next name? Like, who does he fight that can outdo Tyson? Because
he wants Canelo.
Okay.
He's calling out Canelo. He also called out.
That's who he's calling out.
He also called out Conor McGregor
in an MMA fight.
In MMA, where he is like 2.5 times bigger than
but
Conor
I don't
McGregor.
I don't think that will necessarily outdo Tyson. Might have been it. Like, this was a great spectacle,
Dude,
but I
Canelo,
feel like
because he would actually get beaten that one.
It is several shades beyond infuriating to see you guys set up a Jake Paul Canelo match that makes me want to fight all.
Despite calling out Canelo, Jake Paul has always expressed admiration for the Mexican boxing legend. From the start of his career, Paul has respected Canelo's skills and personality, admitting that he genuinely likes Canelo, even though he's eager to face him in the ring.
If you look at the Tyson-Jake Paul debacle, everybody laughed at the main event, but they were exposed to one of the best women's fights of all time in Katie Taylor and Amanda Serrano, the rematch. So if there's something in it that can bring exposure to boxing in that regard, it's a slight win for the sport. But I do agree with Rick. I think that it would be great to see the mainstream public really amped up for a pure boxing fight rather than a freak.
Sports analyst Stephen A. Smith has already warned Jake Paul about facing Canelo. On the Better podcast, Smith advised Paul that he's not ready to take on a champion like Canelo, suggesting that Paul, despite his improvements, isn't at the level needed to compete with someone of Canelo's caliber.
Out in mind? Are you kind of just going to see where it takes?
No, I mean, I do. It's Canelo. This moment will prove that I'm the face of boxing, the largest attraction. Me versus Canelo at 200 pounds for the cruiserweight championship is the biggest fight, arguably even bigger than me versus Tyson, and it makes so much sense. And, you know, Canelo's on his way out. He's going to want a payday, and I want to show the world that all the shit I've been talking about beating Canelo is actually true, and I'll have the biggest upset in the sport of boxing, and we will fight to really see who is the face. After this event, I'm going to be claiming it. I beat his gate record. I'm beating the ticket sales, all of that stuff. So I'm going to be the new money.
Jake Paul has explained why he wants to fight Canelo. He recalled how people doubted him when he called out Nate Diaz, yet he proved them wrong. Setting his sights on Canelo, Paul feels this fight will fulfill a long-term goal.
You really, really need to stop. I hope you don't think that you're ready for some guy like Canelo Alvarez, though. You ain't that crazy, are you?
I am beyond
Please don't
ready.
tell me that.
I am beyond ready. In all
Come
fucking
on,
seriousness,
Jay.
I
Jay,
beat Canelo
God,
Alvarez.
Stephen A., you're just not happy with anything. First, you're like getting there with a real opponent, and then you're like, oh, you don't think you're not ready for Canelo? You're not that crazy. Well, make up your mind.
Hold on, excuse me. What is your name again?
My name is Julia.
Julia.
Yes.
Okay, I appreciate your passion. Thank you very much, but I have to say this to you. There is a middle ground. I mean, you can't sit up there and say I'm not happy with anything because I'm saying get in with a real boxer, but in the same breath, I'm like, you ain't ready for a world champion. But I mean, that's not an insult. I'm not insulting you. I'm not saying you'll never be ready for him, but you don't go from fighting UFC fighters to Canelo Alvarez.
But I'm beating world champions in sparring.
Okay, I didn't know that.
That's what I'm saying. And so, but this is what they say fight a real boxer, and then I'm like, all right, give me Canelo, and then they're like, you're crazy, shut the up. So it's kind of like, what do I do?
You fight someone lower
So-
than
so-
Canelo's
so-
crazy.
so-
But the thing is Canelo is old. Canelo is looking like he could barely beat Triple G, who's years ago when I was calling out Nate Diaz and all of these big names, Anderson Silva, all of these people, and they said, you don't have the right to call them out. And then I manifested it, got the skill in the gym, got to their level and above, and then beat them. It's literally just, I'm repeating the playbook now. I'm predicting what's going to happen 3 more years from now.
So 3
I'm going to
years.
get to his skill level. and beat him. And I have a weight advantage, a size advantage, a height advantage, a reach advantage.
It always-
and he's super skilled. I just went 10 rounds. Me and Canelo can go 10 rounds. Like, come on.
You face off with Canelo today. What happens?
I would lose. But in 2 years, I have one of the greatest self-belief systems in the world. And I know what I'm capable of. And with this new team, the experience I'm getting in the ring under the lights, I believe in 2 years, I can give Canelo a serious fucking run for his money.
And he's determined to show the world that he's ready for the biggest challenge yet. If the fight happens, it will be one of the biggest spectacles in boxing. Whether Canelo takes it seriously remains to be seen, but Jake Paul is doing everything in his power to make it happen.